But the thing that just pains me so much is his short little life. He went through so much. And the disease we had no control over. Him getting molested.
Yeah, and physical violence also often accompanies sexual abuse. I know in my situation, I was extremely physically abused in addition to the sexual abuse. It's how they gain power and control over you. Hi, I'm Angela Williams.
And I'm Katie Sudano.
And I'm a survivor of child sexual abuse.
And I'm a survivor of child sexual abuse.
Welcome to Voice Up for the Voiceless. We're so glad you've tuned in with us today. We are a podcast that provides a platform for a really difficult subject, and child sexual abuse no one really wants to talk about. And
icky.
It happens to so many people. Statistics, 1 in 4 girls, 1 in 6 boys. If you're listening today, it very possibly could have happened to you. So we're excited today to welcome a guest, Tim Cahill, to our show. Tim is actually our producer and is the owner of Mesmerize Media. So to put a plug in for him, if you need a media produced, he's your man. But it just goes to show you, as Tim began to produce our show, that it's very few lives that child sexual abuse has not touched. Right, Katie?
Yeah, it's unfortunate. In fact, when we met, you were producing my podcast that I was on as a guest with our dear friend Glenn Carver, and as I was telling my story at the end, I remember you were telling me your story, and it's just crazy how many people you meet, and it's almost like you can kind of tell something's happened to the other person, but nobody ever wants to, hey, were you abused, sexually as a child? But it's amazing how when you open up, then the other people around you feel kind of like, oh, okay, maybe I can say something.
And that's what this podcast is all about. It's about breaking the silence. It's about giving people just a space, a space to tell their story, a space to maybe connect with our audience, because there's so many people suffering, relate.
Yeah.
So, Tim, we're just going to let you share. I know that it's touched your lives in a lot of different ways. And so for those that are listening, to share as a survivor, but to also share when it's in your family and how that impacts you. So I think it's going to be a great show, and we're just excited to have you.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on. It has been an absolute pleasure to produce your podcast and to just be a part of it, because what you guys are doing is absolutely wonderful. It's needed. It's obviously needed. So my story, so I guess I'll kind of go back to day one. My mom was 19 years old when she got pregnant with me. And when she called my father up and said, Al, I've got news, I'm pregnant. He's like, wow, well, I have news, I'm married. So my real father was never really in the picture. It's funny, the only reason why he was in the picture at all was because of his wife, who I still have a relationship with today. Wow. Wonderful woman. She had 4 boys before she had married him. They're my older brothers. I mean, like, just great people. But I would see my father like once a year, so he wasn't really part of the picture. And then my mom ended up getting married to my brother's father, my brother Chris, my brother Chris passed away when he was 9 years old. I was 14. Then my mom divorced him. He was very, very physically abusive to me and my mom. He didn't really abuse me in front of my mom. For me, it wasn't sexual abuse with him. It was physical abuse. My mom wouldn't allow him to beat on me, but he would do it when she wasn't there. And the reason why she left him is one time, now picture this, 1979, I'm 4 years old. I've got the long bowl haircut, and he started beating my mom in front of me. And he was 6'4", 300 plus pounds, and I grabbed onto his leg and I bit a chunk out of his leg through his denim jeans. And he grabbed me by the hair and threw me, and I bounced off the wall, and my mom busted a lamp over his head, and that's when she left him. She's like, you will not touch my son,
Well, good for her.
Oh yeah, my
cookie there.
My mom was amazing. So my brother Chris, his father was the one who did all that. He was a baby, and when they got divorced, and then we lived in an apartment. And when my mom always had to work, and I had two different babysitters, and they're both female, and they both, sexually abused me. Like it was like each one did it a couple times. It wasn't like all the time or regular, but I think if I remember correctly, I remember, I think it happened like maybe 5 times total between the two of them. I was never hurt physically or anything like that. Honestly, I was lucky in the fact that, I mean, a lot of people, when they are abused, it can be very painful. It can hurt them and stuff like that. So I never told my mom. I never told anybody about it or anything like that. And I know this sounds weird, but it never really bothered me emotionally too much. Part of the reason why I think it didn't is because I was young enough that I didn't know better about it. I kept the secret like I was told. But the other reason is once to our knowledge, it didn't happen before they got divorced. But once my mom and my brother, by the way, I refuse to say his name. I won't say his name.
No,
I just
sure, no.
don't like. I won't say his name.
Absolutely.
I don't want his name in my vocabulary. But
I understand.
so he had visitation of my brother on the weekends, and one time my brother came home and he said his name because he didn't call him daddy. He said
So and so.
Yeah, put a cookie in my butt. And my mom's like, huh? And she like looked at his rectum and stuff, and what's going on, and didn't see any evidence of anything. She's like, and it just sounds funny, It's like
Kids don't know how to tell. They don't know. They don't have the words. They don't have the vocabulary.
That night, he woke up screaming. My mom took him to the emergency room, and they removed what they think was a chicken bone. A sharp disc-like chicken bone from my brother's rectum. The doctors say it was absolutely impossible that he could have ingested it, that it was inserted rectally.
Yeah.
And it like tore him up a little bit inside there. And my mom ended up, they took him to court. We got his visitation taken away. My mom ended up at this point in time, had met my stepdad, who adopted my brother and adopted me, and to this day is still my dad. Amazing man. But because that happened to my brother, and because my brother was sick, he had just been diagnosed with a terminal brain disease. I don't look at what happened to me as anything. It's nothing, because what happened to my brother in his short little life.
Well, we never want to diminish sexual abuse of a child, because you were a child.
Yeah.
And it hurt. And you don't know really the impact, but so many times, especially when men are sexually abused, they get hypersexualized. I think all of us have trouble trusting people. Are you going to invade my boundaries? Or a relationship. And for your brother, what a big heart you have. It's like you're almost more concerned for him than yourself. But it hurts. It hurts. And especially, I just want your bravery and your courage to come on and to talk about this. I know you don't talk about it a lot. I know you don't. And I know it hurts, and it's hard. It's hard. Yeah. And you said there one time too that there's other people in your family too that have been sexually abused. Do you want to share some of that? Well, you can not know names, of course.
Real quick before you share, I want to preface that in my last chapter in my book, I talk about comparing pain or comparing stories, because I knew that my story was kind of out there and above and beyond. But I want you to know, and I want our listeners to know that, pain is pain.
Yes.
You can't quantify it or compare it. I tell my kids, it's like when I have a stomach ache, it hurts so bad I wish for a headache. And then I have a headache, I'm like, no, let's go back to the stomach ache. Because pain is pain. You don't want it. And I understand why you're feeling like, what's me and compared to your brother. But, my son said the same thing. He's like, but compared to what you've been through, Mom, what about, mine's nothing. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I'm like, the damage that it's caused, and I'm not saying you're damaged by any means. Or
I'm
anyone's
damaged just in many other ways.
No, I didn't mean it like that, but like the damage or the repercussions that come about that, and the things that we have to face and learn and grow from. Certainly I wouldn't diminish that. In fact, I would probably, if you haven't, look into it more and make sure that everything is healed and cleared.
Yeah.
I have talked to people about it, and my thing is, I don't know. I can't explain. I'm not suppressing emotions or feelings.
Yeah.
I'm not doing anything, at least on purpose or anything. It's just one of those that it happened to me. I don't feel that it influenced me or caused me to go down a path or anything like that. I mean, I guess it has a little bit in the fact that like I'm hyper against it. I don't want other people and kids getting them, and stuff like that. Yeah.
That's a good thing.
But I think guys in general can do that. A lot of you guys have this you can tuck it away and not let it affect your life, where I think, and I'm not saying that every man is that way, but I think in general, women we're so much more emotional and sensitive, and it does affect us a little bit differently than it does a man in general.
Here's the thing too, and you guys might completely disagree with me, but this is just my thoughts on it. Sometimes I believe the way people respond to children when they have been molested make it a whole lot worse.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
100% agree with that. Yeah.
Agree.
I'm not saying that they're not victims. I'm not saying that what happened isn't horrible.
We understand, yeah.
But it's kind of the same thing as you see a parent who, when their child falls, and they're like, "Oh my God, are you okay?" And they're like freaking out. What they do is the child ends up freaking out,
and
right?
Crying,
and I think it's the same thing with sexual abuse. Like so often, it's, "Oh my God, you poor little." And do I have the answer of how you're exactly supposed to handle it and treat it? No, but I think that people force sometimes kids to be more victims.
And the opposite,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, but the opposite also happens where parents don't take the disclosure
Absolutely,
seriously, and
absolutely.
they diminish the pain, the trauma. They marginalize, minimize when it's something devastating that happened to the child. So I think on both ends of the spectrum, I think the way, and for our listeners, so if you are taking a disclosure from a child, you do remain calm and you do say, this is not your fault and I believe you and we're going to get help and we're going to get justice. And that's the way that you respond. But you do stay calm, but you do respond in not ignoring it, not sweeping it under the rug, because so often when you get these disclosures, it is a family member, a parent, a grandparent, an uncle, a friend, someone close that the child knows, loves, and trusts. That's how they gain access to children, and that's how they gain the trust. So I'm so sorry that happened to your little brother, and I'm so sorry that he passed, and I know that he is in your heart.
Oh my gosh.
He is so in your heart at all times. I know that just from knowing you, and what a great big brother you were.
So June 21st was 35 years ago that he passed away.
Wow.
Still to this day, he is the single biggest influence of who I am.
Aww.
It's okay.
Sorry.
Where are the tissues?
I'm good.
You're
But
fine, son.
I miss him. I was telling Angela, we just moved, and I was going through a box that I found in the attic, and it was all my mom's old pictures. My mom passed away 7.5 years ago, so I have a lot of her stuff, and just going through pictures, seeing so many pictures of me and my brother.
So it brings up a lot of emotion.
Yeah, and my voice gets higher when I cry.
It's okay.
But the fact that he lived 9.5 years, and 5.5 of those years were sick. He was perfectly normal till he was 4 years old. He had a very rare brain disease called Batten's disease. And at the time, he was like one of 300 kids who had ever been diagnosed in the United States.
Wow.
And ironically, he was the third kid who had lived on our street.
Oh.
But it's a genetic disease.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Yes,
crazy.
I know. But the thing that just pains me so much is his short little life. He went through so much. And the disease we had no control over. him getting molested.
Yeah.
Yeah, and physical violence also
Yeah.
often accompanies sexual abuse. I know in my situation, I was extremely physically abused in addition to the sexual abuse. It's how they gain power and control over you. But we don't understand, but for him to be a legacy still in your life speaks volumes to his 9.5 years.
You know, it's funny, I refuse to be a victim anymore. I refuse to be anybody or anything's victim. And I've got 3 boys of my own. I've got one that is going to be 23. He's graduating from KSU this year with professional sales.
Hey.
I've got one that he's a stud college player, and in 3 days he will be 19.
Oh.
Wow, it's actually his golden birthday, too. I didn't realize
Yeah.
and then I have one who's 13 and a half. He's going into 8th grade.
And they're all very handsome, by the way.
Thank you. Thank God for my wife. You know, I'm living proof that personality goes a long way. One of the biggest things that I've taught my boys is not to be a victim. And I'm like, because my definition of being a victim is giving up control of your emotions to someone or something else. Now,
giving your
we're
power
all a
away.
victim sometimes, but it's how long are you going to let that live, right? When I was 18 years old, I was either 18 or 19. And I know I've told you guys this story before, but I was doing a charity event, and you know, when you have a terminally ill brother, you become part of a terminally ill community. By the time I was 20 years old, I'd probably been to at least 20 kids' funerals.
Oh my goodness.
It was just a part of life, you know. And it's funny because people are always like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." I'm like, "Don't ever no. My life is amazing. No matter what I go through, my life is amazing." And it has a lot to do with what this lady said to me. I'm doing this charity event, and she's like, everybody knew me as Timmy back then. She's like, "Timmy, it's so good to see you, blah, blah, blah." And we were just talking for a while, and she asked me how things were going, blah, blah, blah. And I said something to her, and she's like, "You know, I'm sure you would have turned out to be a fine young man regardless." She goes, "You got good parents." She said, "But I just can't help but think that Chris's life and death has touched you in a way that has made you so much more of a compassionate and just a great human being." And I went home that night, and I tossed and turned. I cried 3 or 4 times. I finally fell asleep, and I woke up the next day, and I just said, "God, I'm so tired of being sad that my brother died, because I'm so happy that he lived." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's so cliche, but the glass is half full or half empty. And ever since then, I'm the glass is half full guy. I focus on what I have and forget about what I don't have. When I pray to God, I don't pray and say, "God, please give me this." I'm not going to say that I don't ever say, "God, give me help."
Yeah.
Amen.
But when I pray, I thank God for all the bad times, because it is what has built me. It's what's made the good so much better, you know? And I try to explain that to people. I'm like, when I'm going through something bad, I look at it as a positive thing, because I'm going to get something really good out of this. I know that, you know?
Our viewers listening, our friends tuning in, what an inspiration that you have just spoken into their lives. What a wonderful inspiration.
Well, God doesn't give us more than we can't handle, you know?
And we've all got something. We're either going through it, been through it, going through it tomorrow.
Yep. And another thing is, like, no matter how bad I've had it, or no matter how bad you've had it, or how bad you've had it, there's somebody's had it worse and might have a better outlook on life. So it's like, who am I to whine and complain? You know, poor me, you know? My youngest son was playing baseball, and he had joined this new team, or it wasn't a new team, but he had joined this team. And the year before, the assistant coach's son was second baseman. Well, my son was a better second baseman, so he got that spot, and that kid got moved in outfield. So every time they're out there practicing, or they're in games or anything like that, if my son made a mistake, that kid was behind him like, "You suck." And he's like, "You're retarded," and all this stuff, saying this to my son. And my son's like, and I don't want to say his name, but my son's like, he keeps doing this, Dad, blah, blah, blah. And I told him, I said, "Wow, Cooper, you really sound like a victim." And he's like, "What?" I'm like, you sound like a victim." He goes, "Well, how do I handle it?" I said, "Well, next time he says you suck, turn around and say, 'I know, I should have made that play.'" When he's like, "You're retarded," and like, "Tell me about it." Take his thunder away. Don't let, I said, because he's doing it because he's getting that reaction out of you, you know? And he started doing that. And then he's like, Dad, man, we're getting along so much better now when he stopped doing it. And I'm like, but when you are a victim, it's amazing, but it can keep you becoming a victim more often, you know what I mean?
And that poor kid who knows who's calling him that. So he's trying to get some power over someone else.
Yeah,
we just never stop to think what's going on in someone else's life when they're bullying or they're aggressive.
Yep.
Just in driving, I just moved. I had just a horrendous move that puts me on the road a lot more now, driving from downtown. So just all these aggressive drivers, I was like, okay, Lord, I'm just praying for them because they're not having a good day. As they're honking at me and putting the finger up.
Well, PSA, just people need to know this. If you're going slower, driving the right lanes, you'll be happier. If you're in the left lanes and you're going really slow, man, people drive like crazy.
Well, but Atlanta, everyone's everywhere all the time. So it's like, and sometimes
they're on
you
their
can't.
phone, they're putting their makeup on, they're texting, they're watching movies.
But you can't always be
driving.
in the slow lane or in the right lane because the Atlanta is like, you've got to, there's just so many.
Yeah.
They're all in the fast lane. We're in the fast lane.
They're fast.
Fast. Yeah, exactly. But it's one of those that everything that's happened in my life, I let it inspire me. You know, it's all about mindset. It's all about mindset.
I wish I could. I need to get there because
you have inspired us, and you've inspired us by just graciously pouring into this podcast and the editing and the And I'm just curious. I know that you've probably never done anything like this before on this subject or topic. So, kind of, how has our show kind of impacted your life or impacted how you view this topic or issue?
Well, first off, I can't say it enough. I am so just against any kind of sexual abuse of anybody, you know.
Abuse.
But like, you've just raised my awareness for one. Mm-hmm. Two, it's a great cause, and I mean, like, if we can help anybody, I know that, and you guys are the ones in front of the cameras all the time. I'm the one behind the camera usually, but I have a hand in it. And if somebody's being helped or it can help learn how to deal with what's happened to them better or something like that, that's what it's all about.
You know what I mean? It's funny, but because my childhood was very sad at times, and I allowed it to be sad for a long time. Because that, I have a mission every day, and that's to put a smile on people's faces. So I'm a goofy guy. I go to networking meetings, and I'm always telling jokes, and I just make people are always like, "You're so funny," and it's like I do try to do it, but it's like if I can make somebody laugh, if I can make somebody smile. The day after Thanksgiving, all the way up to Christmas, I have a different Christmas outfit, and oh my gosh, are they goofy!
I can't wait to
and I'll be walking down the street or walking somewhere, and a complete stranger will look at me and just go, "I like your outfit," and I'm like, mission accomplished. There's so much negativity out in the world that I'm like, I want to be a force of positivity, even if it's just for a split second. If I can put a smile on somebody's face, then mission accomplished. Then it's a good day.
Well, you have definitely done that in our lives and definitely put a smile. And so if you're listening to this and this has touched you, just comment. Just let Tim know what an inspiration that he's been for us.
Thank you.
And
absolutely. I'm just curious, how does it feel to be behind the microphone?
Well,
did you ever think you would be behind talking about this?
No, but I have been on several podcasts. I was on Glenn's, and I have my own. It's funny, I have a podcast, but even though I've recorded a bunch of them, I've never put them out there for people to see or anything like that. It was more of a marketing tool for the company. So like being on a microphone, and also you got to understand, I've been a DJ for 32 years as well. Being in front of a microphone and talking in front of people is so second nature to me. I still DJ karaoke. I get on a mic and sing in front of complete strangers all the time. It doesn't even bother me. So.
Yeah, I'm more curious about you feeling about talking about this topic.
It's one of those. It's funny. Like I said, I don't feel anything from what happened to me, but I do feel enlightened a little bit today after talking about some of it.
Oh,
like I feel like a weight's been lifted, and it's funny because my brother Chris, when I tell people about Chris, they're always like, I'm sorry. And I'm like, I love talking about my brother Chris. It keeps him alive. His birthday was 11/14, November 14th, and almost every day, sometimes twice a day, I'll just, oh, look, it's 11/14.
Wow.
And I just happen to look at the clock
the
or my watch,
time-wise?
and I know that's him talking to me. And like I'll stop what I'm doing. I'm like, I hear you, Chris.
Oh,
You know?
that's amazing.
My oldest son's middle name is Christopher. And
I just
he lives on.
applaud your mom. I applaud her courage
Yeah.
to so many women stay in those domestically violent and abusive situations.
And she did until it happened to me.
Yeah.
My mom was a smoker until she got pregnant with me, put it down, never picked it up again. My mom left an abusive relationship because I got hit. You know what I mean? My mom was strong. My mom was so
Mother bear.
strong. I miss her like crazy.
Oh, I bet you do.
Yep.
Wow.
So 62 years old is too young to die, you know,
Yes.
but so is 9.5.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. It sounds like you have had a lot of loss in your life, but you've turned it into good. And
Yeah.
you have a beautiful family and a beautiful wife. We love your wife so much.
She's amazing.
She's so precious.
And you know, I've had a very tough year with the business and just a lot of other things. You know, my business development manager, Glenn, passed away, who was just a dear friend. And just a lot of things happened this year. And it's funny because honestly, in one way, it's one of the worst years I've had on this planet. But I will tell you, it's been the best year of my almost 26 years of being married to my wife. It's been the best year. She is my absolute
Your
rock.
support.
Yeah. And my 3 boys, I can't have a conversation without them saying I love you. And my oldest son can be with his frat brothers, and he's like, hey, I love you, Dad. My middle son Tanner, good Lord, Tanner cannot. He's like, he'll be in his room. He's like, hey, Dad, are you doing something? Blah blah. Yeah, okay, love you. I mean, just every single time. And Cooper, yesterday, Cooper was at his friend's grandma's house helping doing some landscaping. And I go to pick him up, and she's like, he is welcome to come over here anytime. He is the most well-mannered young man. He was so sweet. He worked his butt off, and I just love him. And I'm like, then I know my wife and I are doing something right.
We did a good job. Yeah.
So,
What I see in that, Tim, is that you have just poured so much love into them that it's overflowing back out to you.
oh, yeah.
And that's such a testament of you being such a great godly man.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You shine the light of God.
You know,
shine it bright.
I do have to say, it's funny because I know a lot of people who go through trauma, whether it's sexual abuse, or losing a loved one, watching their brother die. You know, I've never ever had anger towards God. I've always believed. I've always felt God's love. There's been many times where I know I could be a much better. You know, it's funny. I don't like to use the word Christian. Yeah. The word that I prefer is full of faith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I'm faithful to God, you know, and so realizing that He's been with me my entire life, and you know, I grew up for a few years without a father, but you know what? I didn't. I've always had a father, and God is, man, just.
I've heard
the
this so
I
many
get.
times, and it just resonates with me right now, is that someone spoke this into my life one time, is that there's nothing I can do to make God love me more, and there's nothing I can do to make God love me less.
Yeah.
And that really has stuck with me. So yeah, He has no expectations other than just to be His child.
Oh man. Well,
That's it.
I know I can always be better. I always and I always try. I try my hardest. Well, not my hardest. Like I said, I could always try harder. You know, we are all what we are. But I thank God for giving me Chris for 9.5 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's funny, when my brother passed away, we had over 800 visitors come to his wake.
Oh.
Right, and I refuse to say I'm sorry when somebody passes away. And the reason why is because 800 different people, I'm so sorry for your loss. I'm sorry for your loss. I'm so sorry for your loss. I don't ever judge anybody who says, because what do you say, right?
Yeah.
But
know
like
what to say.
I try to find something else to say, and I always try for it to be something that can make them feel better, and give them a little bit of a different perspective of looking at it, you know. But I thought I went through the same thing that my parents went through. when my brother passed away. And when my oldest son was born, we didn't find out. My wife didn't have we didn't do an ultrasound to find out what the sex was. I'm like, let's not find out until it comes out. And he was a boy, and of course, so I walk out to the lobby or the waiting room, and I tell my mom and dad, and I'm like, it's a boy, and my mom's like, I figured, because my mom had 4 boys. I do have another brother and sister that they were my stepbrother and stepsister, but I was adopted, so legally they're my brother and sister, and I love them to death. But my mom had 4 boys, so she was looking for a granddaughter. But anyways, I told my mom. And then I started crying a little bit, and she's like, what's the matter? And I'm like, I'm so sorry. She's like, for what? And I'm like, I always thought I knew what you guys went through when Chris died. And I'm like, I still don't. I said, but I know a lot better now. I'm like, I've never loved anybody on this earth as much as I love this baby. You know, it's amazing the love when you have a child.
You can't tell, you just can't tell someone. My daughter's expecting next week, actually.
Oh,
I know.
wow.
I'm
I'm so excited for her to just feel that bond
Mm-hmm.
and maybe get some more compassion toward me for being Mama Bear so
Yeah.
often. But it's
They all
children are a
understand
blessing
eventually.
Oh,
from
yeah.
God. And He tells
Yeah,
us in
for
His Word
sure.
that. So, well, we always. Do you have any final questions? 'Cause
No, I'm just
wanna
always
hear.
when you talk, you're I don't know if you know, you probably know, but your words are resonating and it's inspiring to hear, of course, like you said, but it's hard to even ask you questions because what you say is so much more profound than I think you even realize. So thank you
Thank
for
you, I
sharing.
appreciate
So we're going to make you package all that up in our final voice of inspiration.
All right. I know how this goes. I know how this goes.
Right.
My biggest word of inspiration is realize that when you're going through it, when times are bad, it's going to get better, and that bad is going to make it better. My best analogy is I like to ask people, what's your favorite weather? And so often people are like, I love it when it's sunny and 75. I'm like, well, if it was sunny and 75 every single day, do you think you would appreciate it as much? But because we get the 98 degree with 120% humidity, or we get the 30 degree with sleeting rain, do you think that maybe you appreciate that weather so much more? The good is not good. God has bad on this planet because we're all creatures of taking things for granted.
Yes.
And the bad is placed there so often so the good is so much better, and so we can appreciate the good. So when you're going through something bad, I see people like on Facebook, they'll say, please pray for me. And my prayer is, I hope that they learn the lesson that you were putting in front of them, Lord, and I hope that they can, that when it gets good, they can realize how good it is.
Oh, what a wonderful
that's
word.
great.
And we just thank you, Tim. We don't just thank you for being on our show. We thank you for everything that you do for us every day.
For everyone.
So if you're
everyone that's in
if
your
you're
life.
watching this podcast and you're grateful for the podcast, because there's not a lot of platforms that we can really unpack this issue of child sexual abuse. So just comment, let us know, let Tim know, because he works really hard behind the camera, and we're just so incredibly
we're
grateful for
appreciative,
Mesmerize Media, and we're grateful for you for tuning in. So we're asking that you would please share this podcast and continue to support it, because we need more conversations. We need to break the silence, and
Bring
if you're a
awareness to
survivor,
this.
we're praying for you. I just want you to know that we are definitely praying for your healing. Katie and I
And we're here for you. We have resources. Feel free to reach out. Even if you want to create a fake account and you don't want to tell us your name, that's fine. Just reach out to us. And we always put the links for the resources. AngelasVoice.com has a ton of resources there, and people we can get you in contact to speak out and help you heal.
So thank you for tuning in. I'm Angela Williams,
And I'm Katie Sudano.
and this has been the Voice Up for the Voiceless podcast.
Thank you.